Today's Power Mac shenanigans are brought to you by Squarespace. But more on that in a bit. Today, we've got a really special lead by, a nice 420%. Try some software that has no business running on a 21-year-old Mac. So join me as we put way too much faith in way too old of a power supply, and stay tuned. And if you enjoy breathing new life into beautiful but obsolete machines, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. We do a lot of lovingly over-the-top upgrades around here, so it's definitely worth sticking around. In the grand scheme of Apple's history, this 2001 Digital Audio G4 doesn't particularly stand out. Now sure, it added some great features to Apple's existing professional product line, upgraded audio as the name suggests, and 4 PCI slots that are 64-bit, and faster 133 MHz system memory and bus. Although for some reason, it only has 3 RAM slots instead of the previous iteration's 4. Apple doing Apple things, I suppose. But those were incremental changes to an already powerful machine, and in fact, this particular example is the baseline spec at 466 MHz, where the range went up to 733. But this machine is very special to me. Many years ago, when I was a wee young Action Retro, I found looks, how fast it made OS X feel. I messed around with Linux on this thing, I learned how to make Flash animation, and I've missed it ever since. But thanks to friend of the channel Brian of Brian's Computer Retreat, I was able to buy back this important piece of my personal computing history. Although it's not the exact one that I had, but still, it's pretty much the same spec. But what's really going to make this build over the top is what's inside of this envelope here. This is a one-off processor upgrade card at 2 GHz, built by Hurd and generously donated to the channel by him. If you've been around here for a while, you might recognize that name, because we've used Hurd's processor upgrades in a bunch of really cool builds, like our 2 GHz G4 Cube, and our dual 2 GHz mirror drive doors that's pretty much the ultimate 32-bit PowerPC Linux machine. Let's take a closer look at the upgrade in this envelope and the modified heatsink, right after this message from today's sponsor, Squarespace. Create a fast, beautiful, and rich web experience for your business or brand using Squarespace's powerful all-in-one platform. It's really easy to get started. Like, say I wanted to build a website just gushing about this pinnacle of Apple design. Not only could I build it in minutes with Squarespace, but it would be well-designed, responsive, and mobile-friendly. There's a ton of beautiful templates that I could choose to start from. And from there, it's simple to build a great looking site that's also fast, responsive, and completely mobile friendly. With Squarespace's extensive built-in toolset, I can also optimize for SEO, manage a mailing list, check my analytics, and much more. So check out squarespace.com/actionretro today for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use code ActionRetro to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. All right, let's take a look at what's in this envelope here. And there's actually 2 things in here. Let's see. Okay, so this is the processor card. All right, well, okay, we'll open that in a second. Let's see what else is in here. There's another board. Oh, wow. Okay. This, we talked about this. I didn't realize he was sending me one. This is a G4 upgrade card for a PowerBook Pismo. And we were talking about this because actually he noticed in my video, my card had some issues. So this is going to be a custom card that Hurd built that should have a G4 processor and working cache on it, which was the problem with mine. Oh man, wow, thank you so much, Hurd. This is incredible. Let's take a good look at the upgrade we'll be dealing with today. Little anti-static mat here. Oh boy, look at this. So here is our processor, which is built onto an existing, I guess, stock Apple card, and the PLL resistors have been swapped around to clock it, and this is actually also a newer version of the G4, because you can see this little circuit board underneath the processor is an interposer card to translate the newer version of the CPU to this socket built for the older version. And that, of course, necessitates a modified heatsink because this height here is going to be a little higher than the stock heatsink could handle. So yeah, Hurd has nicely included this modified, cut down G4 heatsink here. And this red wire here is to sap some 12-volt power from a spare Molex. But first, let's set up our Power Mac for the upgrade. 1.5 gigs of RAM with these three 512 sticks. And we have quite an upgraded video card. Yeah, this is a GeForce 7800 GS. By default, this machine had 32 megs of VRAM, but this card provides it with a nice cool 256 megs and should be enough to give us all of the graphical bells and whistles in macOS 10 Leopard. The only thing I really want to replace right now is this, the 40 gigabyte spinning hard drive. And in the future, it might be cool to put a SATA controller card in here, which is perfectly viable, and we've done that on a bunch of other PowerPC Macs, but yeah, I'm not sure how much of a benefit that would actually give this particular machine. Okay, so here is a 240 gigabyte PNY SATA SSD held in by just, usually we go with something like the Apple Studio Display, which, I mean, that's really what Apple expected you to pair with this. But I have something a little more interesting that I think makes a lot of sense with this build. This is an ISO FlexScan L371, and it is a monitor that was aimed at the top of the top hardcore professionals that needed the best possible image out of an LCD in 2001. This thing cost you $900. Yeah, $900 for the best possible image quality. So I think this is a really cool, period correct, high-end creative setup. So I want to set this up with 3 partitions. One for macOS 9, one for 10.4 Tiger, and then the third partition for Sorbet Leopard, which is that incredible hacked version that adds all kinds of cool features and modern touches and stuff. And I think that will run great. And you know, we're going to set this up using original install media because, hey, we're professionals. And jump cut to everything is installed, and it went pretty smoothly. I have a macOS 9 partition here at 10 gigs. I have a Tiger 10.4 partition at about 40 gigs. And the rest of the drive is dedicated to Sorbet Leopard with about 67 gigs available. I've gone ahead and taken some benchmarks here in Geekbench 2.2.7, and yeah, we have a score of 328, but that'll be more important once we get a post-upgrade speed. Now, benchmarks are one thing, but you know how we like to test processor performance. That's right, super old versions of Minecraft, which are almost entirely processor dependent. So this is a new version of PowerPC optimized Minecraft 1.8.9. Now, of course, that's a very old version of Minecraft itself, but it was recently released by Mueller Minky and a few other people, and it's up on the Macintosh Garden, which I will link below. And yeah, this has some optimizations to make it playable on PowerPC Macs, which this version of Minecraft was never ever intended to, but since it's written in Java, it's technically cross-platform. It's certainly taken its time to load. All right, full screen mode, because that gives you a bit better performance. And yeah, the title screen is nice and smooth. But let's pop into a single-player survival game. And I've already generated a world, which took like 15 minutes to finish. But let's pop in and take a look at these frame rates. Ah, geez, it took like 10 minutes to load into this already generated world. That's not very promising. And yeah, I didn't actually look at the frame rate before shooting this. I just generated the world. That was better than I expected for 466 megahertz. so we can hit F3 and see our frame rate, which here is a nice 5-6 frames per second standing still, and then when we run, wow, dipping down to 2. Okay, now before we can actually install the upgrade, we do have to update the firmware on the Mac, which we'll do using this handy dandy CD I made way back when we were doing this on the G4 Cube. So I just have to restart the machine with this in the optical drive. Hold down the programmer button and hit C when it makes a beep. All right, and this lovely teal screen means that we've made it into the Flash utility. Okay, something's weird. It says it can't detect 3 different patch areas. No, 4 different patch areas. So it's shutting down. Huh. Okay, it seems like I'm not on the latest firmware here. I have 4.1.8, and I think the latest version is 4.2.8. All right, updating the firmware did it. We now have the correct selections here, so I'm going to hit 5 to apply all patches. And it looks like it's working. And this is going to let Open Firmware know how to use the newer version of the G4 that's on our upgrade card here, because otherwise it wouldn't actually boot from that G4. So now that I've done all patches, it will now only boot from this newer version of the G4 processor. All right. Yeah, just look at the difference there. Yeah, bigger is always better. Now our heatsink will go in like this. And I've added this Be Quiet fan here to help keep temperatures in check. So let's do the most dangerous thing that a person can do on video on YouTube, and that is add some thermal compound. All right, installed. Now I'm going to do this little extension here to plug the fan in and just have that go all the time. And also plug in our 12-volt power. Oh, that feels so wrong. Oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, amazing. All right. Okay, let's do first boot with the case open. In case we get any fireworks, we will have a front row seat. Oh God. Well, chime, that's a good sign. Fan is spinning. Hey! It's booting! Okay, so it turns out that this fan on top of the heatsink wouldn't fit with the case closed. So instead, I went with these 2 little fans that I had laying around and stuck them in there. But that's okay, because bonus, they're RGB. Now, I don't think they're really that powerful, so I'll probably look for beefier fans that'll fit in here. But for now, I think this will work just fine. Oh yeah, look at that. That is so much more responsive. About this Mac shows 1.87 gigahertz. That is a pretty nice bump from 466 megahertz. And I believe this card could do at least 2 gigahertz if it was in a different system with a faster system bus. All right, well, that is a dramatic improvement. 995 versus our previous score of 328. All right, look at that. In specifically processor scores, integer performance went from 373 to 1,318. Floating point performance went from 331 to a whopping 1,150. Goodness gracious, that is a heck of a performance increase. All right, benchmarks are one thing, but you know what we're testing next? Wow, that launched so much faster. Oh my goodness. We are into the game in seconds instead of minutes, and we have a playable frame rate. Oh, that's amazing. Wow, look at this. This is totally playable. I can punch a tree. No lag whatsoever. We're getting a nice 15 to 42 FPS. Well, that, honestly, that is better than I expected. Oh man. I appear to have found some missing textures. I wonder what I'm mining right now. Andesite. Neat. Alright, well, instead of doing my video, I've just been standing here playing Minecraft. So, yeah, still pretty amazing. Look at my little house. Aha, creeper. Whoops. Alright, let's have some fun with Sorbet Leopard itself, because we have some fun customization scripts that we can run under the Sorbet Tools folder. And my favorite thing to do, of course, is to change the look of the interface. So we can go to a High Sierra look by installing Leopard Rebirth. And there it is. We have the High Sierra look. I don't know why that's so funny to me. On this Power Mac G4 looking like High Sierra, but it looks great. And yeah, when you go into About This Mac, macOS Sierra version 10.12.4 on a 1.87 gigahertz PowerPC G4. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Man, I am so excited for this build. And I know it's not the fastest G4 that we've built on this channel. I mean, we've done two dual 2 gigahertz G4 towers, but this one is just special to me. I mean, this was my computer back in the day. This is what I used to use to browse Apple Fritter forums in the early 2000s when I was a teenager. And yeah, wow, it's something special to have finally this thing, Graphite G4, just so extremely overpowered. And I'm so grateful to Hurd for donating this CPU to the channel. Just another masterpiece. And speaking of another masterpiece, yeah, I installed that G4 in the Pismo here. That's running stable at 550 megahertz. That is much faster than the 500 that I had in here before. Oh, man, it is a good day to be a G4 fan. But that'll do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more extremely fast G4s, please subscribe down below. Thank you very much for watching. And a special thanks to Alberto Guerre, Camila Noceda, Chris Allegretta, Chris Biggs, Chris Calderon, Chris Nelson, Cobalt Retrotech, Control-Alt-Reese, Daniel Hubbard, Dwight Spencer, Greg from Hrutk Mods, Paul Spencer, Ryan, Scott Thompson, and Sutek, who are my highest tiered patrons, and all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible.